Alright guys, Paul back here again with a brand new video. This is just going to be a quick video. We're going to do a comparison between a current WWE Attitude Era Big Eagle replica belt. This is what is currently sold on WWEshop.com. So it has the thicker casted plates, 4mm plates, the slightly deeper etching, and we will compare that to a standard 2001 2mm adult sized WWF Big Eagle replica belt. So the third belt up here is actually just the same as this one. It is just fully upgraded. So whereas this one is standard, simulated leather, plastic stones, this one has real leather, cubic zirconia stones, and the logo up top has actually been repainted. So for those that don't know, the WWF version of the Big Eagle actually had a few iterations. The most common version and the longest used version did actually have the white logo, so a lot of customers request that from me. I should mention this belt is already owned. It's a customer's belt that was sent to me to re-leather, so is this one. So he requested the logo painted up top. So the main comparison is between these two standard versions, and we'll just quickly talk about that really. So as I mentioned, the original 2001 versions, we'll just move the re-leathered one out of the way. The original 2001 versions were 2mm plates. So you remember the old classic version of the plates where it's just sheet metal with the details stamped in, so you can see how shallow the details actually are. It's still a really good looking belt, don't get me wrong. These things are rare, crazy rare these days, so it's always a pleasure to have these sent to work on. But the 2mm plates, you can see the detail, it isn't great, but the fact it has the WWF logo is what's so sought after. When you compare that to the WWE version, you can see, especially, let's talk about the writing here. So you can see, I think the Latin writing there, how shallow it is on the F version, and it's certainly a lot deeper on the E version. Same with the side plates. You can see you can see my finger catching on the depth of it there, whereas there's really not much on the WWF version. But I mean, this is by far the more sought after version simply because of the WWF logo. But that's not to say this is a bad replica. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this version. Personally, I think it's too flat. As you can see there, it's pretty much flat, to be honest. I mean, the inner side plates have a bigger curve than the center plate, which is quite strange to see. And these thick plates are a lot more difficult to curve. It's not impossible, but there is always a risk that they'll crack. Whereas these thin 2mm plates, the curve you can kind of choose yourself. This one's got a slightly bigger curve, as you can see there. Those are really easy just to bend over your knee or something similar. So the curve on the old 2mm versions of the belts can be a lot more accurate, whereas I personally think this is just too flat. It doesn't look good at all to me, in my opinion, when it's just flat. The belt on TV was obviously always famously had this massive curve that the plate itself looked more like an oval than a circle. So just thought I'd mention that. But the straps themselves both have these simulated leather straps, as you can see here. It's a bit of a shame these, I should mention this is a 2015 replica. It says on the back of the patch 2015, and that's 2001. It's a shame that the replicas then still had the sewn-on patches for snap boxes. It doesn't look good, to be honest. It causes the strap at the ends especially to be so much stiffer because you're literally sewing on an extra piece of simulated leather. So there's no flexibility in either of these straps. Whereas on the real leather version, obviously you can see it's just one piece of leather and you can immediately see the flexibility there. So this is done in mostly TV accurate style. Obviously we know WWF logos around the border, so we use the camouflage style tool there. And you also might notice the spacing of the snaps is a lot longer on the real leather strap. I base these off of pretty much the TV accurate version. So like I mentioned already, there was a few different versions of this belt used on TV. The most standard version did have the wider spacing. I'm not sure why the replica didn't. It's just how they were made, and they copied the replica style on the E version as well. So this is kind of what the version on TV had. It had wider spacing between the snaps there, and one version actually did have snaps going all the way up to the outer side plate there, but this is the most common version I do, so that's kind of what I stuck with that one. So like I mentioned, these both have simulated stones on them, so the stones aren't great. They're plastic, as you'd imagine, so they have improved on the newer versions, as you'd probably expect, but still nothing compared to the real cubic zirconias, as you can see on this one. So with a light on, those look a lot more impressive. But yeah, all really nice looking belts. Obviously, I can only recommend the F version because of the accuracy of it. The logo, obviously, you want the more accurate version, but as well as another improvement that the newer version does have, admittedly, is the paint. There are instances of pieces of paint falling out. This one appears to be okay from what I've seen, but the paint accuracy is a lot better on the newer versions. As I mentioned, this, because it's so shallow, there's not really any edges to this etching holding the paint in. So around the paint, like, you can see how like untidy the paint actually is. Look at that A, the G there, the L. The paint kind of spills over as well. You can see it's uneven on the edges here. So on the old replicas, because they're 2mm, the paint is obviously a lot more, even on this one, you can see the L there as well. Bit of paint spillage there. So on the 2mm versions, getting the paint to stay in where it was supposed to was obviously a lot trickier, whereas with the deeper etching, there's more of an edge holding the paint in. So you can see on this version, the paint actually looks fantastic. I don't think I see any spillage really of the paint over this belt. So no, I'm impressed with the paint. Obviously, the paint's not the biggest deal of it, but it's still nice to have it looking good. Flipping the two belts over, like I mentioned, this is a 2001 replica, so you can see 2001 right there, and this one was 2015 right there. So obviously you can see this one's actually quite torn up. It's a 19-year-old belt. It has been sent to me to re-leather, so it will end up like this one with the nice smooth black leather backing covering up all the screws on the back there. So it will be a big improvement. As you can see as well, the screws, they used to all be gold. About half of them are silver now. That's just over time, the wear to them. And obviously on the back of this one, we've got a little bit different backing material than the older style. And of course the patch and the holographic stickers there. So yeah, this was pretty much just a quick video. I just wanted to compare the 3 different Big Eagle belts. Like I've already mentioned, of the 3, which would I recommend? Personally, I can only really recommend the WWF version if you can find it. These things are rare. They're fairly expensive to get a hold of these days because the WWF logo versions are really difficult to find. I like this. I don't like the curve on it. I think the curve's really poor. If you can get one with a big curve in it, it will be a big improvement. But if you can't, I can only really say WWF because I'm a stickler for accuracy, and the logo kind of does it for me. This is probably the most synonymous Attitude Era belt, maybe other than the Smoking Skull. So it really needs the WWF logo for me, if that makes sense. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this was a useful video. Like I mentioned, just a quick run through of 3 replica belts. You can obviously see the real leather, the difference that makes immediately when compared to the simulated leather. There's no contest really there. But yeah, it's really cool having these belts to work on. The WWF ones, like I mentioned, because they're so rare, well, I say that, but I've got 4 to re-leather at the moment, but because everyone that has them seems to want to keep them and re-leather them, it does become a bit tricky to come across them these days. So if you can find one, get one. Really good belt. I like it. Obviously, 2mm replicas, it is what it is. It's a 20-year-old belt almost, so there's not really anything to complain about from that point of view. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's dragged on a little bit, but if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more belt videos. Yeah, thank you for watching. Cheers.
Yo, monkeys, it's me, DDP. And if you want to get one of the greatest belts made for you, go to Paulmartinbelts. That's right, sucker.